be getting started with our one of the most important section, and that is visualizing dashboards. So we have discussed some of the important things, like we started with the data gathering phase, that how exactly we can come up with this data gathering, right? How we can gather these CSV files, these important information that we are trying to represent at the end of the day in this section. So how we can gather that information, then how we can come up with this Power Query editor so that we can make the use of this ETL technique, that is extract, transform, and load, to convert that raw data into a proper data format, right? So that we were discussing in the first section. Then from data gathering phase and from Power Query editor, we shifted to data modeling, right? That how these multiple tables that we have just gathered right now, so how we can come up with a proper relationship among these tables, right? So how we can relate these tables together so that the information from one of the table can be linked with respect to the information from some another table as well, right? So for that, we were coming up with this data modeling section. And then once we were done with that data modeling, in the previous section, that was the DAX section, we were discussing about these numbers, right? So we were discussing about that what is the total revenue the company is generating. In a similar way, what is the total profit the company is generating? What is the total orders, right? Then what is the return percentage? So all of these important numbers we were looking upon. And why exactly we were looking upon these numbers? So in order to give you that glance, I can give you an example from one of the show that you might would have watched, right? So there's one of the show that is Shark Tank, right? So in Shark Tank, you might would have seen that the company CEO or from the company side, some entrepreneurs used to come in front of the stakeholders or in front of these large company CEOs, right? And they used to present their idea. So when they used to present their idea, then the stakeholders or the executives used to ask them out these questions, that what is the revenue you are generating, right? What is, if the company is there from last 4 years, then within this time frame of 4 years, what is the revenue you have generated in each and every single year, right? That is the first information that they were asking. In a similar way, that is what is the complete gross margin, what is the return percentage, what is the per capita income, what is the profit percentage. So all of these important insights or all of these important numbers, the company's investors were quite interested in, right? So how exactly the entrepreneurs were representing their idea is either by communicating, or what exactly they can do is that they can simply come up with a visual format, right? They can come up with a chart or they can come up with a dashboard which can represent these important insights in which the investors are quite interested in, right? And that is what we are going to do in this specific section. And that's why this specific section is something for which Power BI is known for. So Power BI is known for creating these dashboards or these visualization dashboards, right? And that is what we are going to discuss in this particular section, that whatever important insights we came up with or whatever important numbers like revenue, profit, orders, or return percentage, whatever those important numbers were. So now in this section, we are going to discuss about that how we can communicate these results. So whatever important findings you came up with from your side or whatever important insights you came up with from your side, all of these important insights, how you can communicate to the stakeholders or how you can communicate these important insights to your manager, to another data analyst or to an executive. How you can communicate these insights, that is something you will be looking upon in this particular section. So let me give you a glance upon what we are going to discuss upon. And before exactly moving forward with the practical implementation and visualization or in creating these report views, I think it's quite important to look upon that whenever we are coming across a problem. Like for example, tomorrow, if you are joining a company as a business analyst or a data analyst, then there are going to be a kind of a way by way approach, right? There is going to be a step by step approach. Like the first step you have to follow, then there's a second step that you need to look upon, and then there is going to be a third step. That is something we need to take care of, right? So up till now in our sections, we were discussing about that how we can gather the information. Once we have gathered the information, then how we can build this data model. That was the second step, and then the third step was data was to come up with this data analysis expression. That is a DAX calculations, and then this fourth section is about visualizing dashboard. In a similar way, when you're joining a company as a data analyst or a business analyst, there is going to be a step-by-step approach, or there are going to be three key questions that you need to ask yourself. And that is what we are going to discuss upon in this video, right? So what are going to be those three questions that you always need to ask yourself from your side so that you can come up with a proper dashboard, or you can simply come up with the proper pictorial representation of your data. That is what a dashboard is, so that you can communicate your important findings to the stakeholders, right? So in this particular section, we are going to discuss upon in the first video that what are these three important key questions that you need to ask yourself so that you can come up with a proper approach, right? So first of all, let us look upon those three important questions, then what is going to be the solution of those three important questions, and then we will be getting started from our next video onwards with a proper kind of a kind of picture, you can say, right? A kind of picture you can see, or a kind of proper format that we are going to create, so that what exactly we are going to follow, and then what is the complete approach we are going to look upon, right? So in this particular section first, or in this particular video, first of all, have a look upon that what is the three questions you need to ask yourself whenever you are working as a data analyst or a business analyst, right? So let me provide a kind of note for you that what you are going to do from your side. So first of all, if I'm looking upon the three key questions, then these three important questions are going to be similar to that of the step approach that you are following up till now, right? Like first of all, you started with a data gathering phase and that model building, then DAX. In a similar way, we are going to come up with the three important questions, wherein the first question that you can ask to yourself, and that is what type of data you are having, right? So this is going to be the first key question that you need to ask yourself. So up till now, we have worked with our data, right? Like we have looked upon that we were having this calendar lookup table, we were having this customer lookup table, then we were having some information with respect to product categories, product lookup, product subcategories, and returns data. So we have looked upon this kind of information, right? That what kind of information is being provided to us from the company side. So on the basis of this kind of data which the company has provided us, as per that only, we will be moving forward with the next question, and that is what do we want to communicate, right? So this is going to be a second question. So first of all, you have to look upon that what kind of data the company has provided to you, so that insight you can get via just performing that data exploration, right? So you need to explore each and every single table, like we were already discussing about these things, that is normalization, that each and every single table should reflect some kind of specific information. So what kind of specific information each and every single table is reflecting upon, that is something you need to see from your side, right? And that information you can get once you're going through each and every single table, right? So these important insights you can come up with by just by just following the first key question, and that is what type of data. So if you want to find out the solution of the first question, that what type of data you are having, then you can just have a look upon all of the tables, and then from there itself, you will get to know that whether if I'm having the different categories. So among the different categories, we are definitely going to work upon, or we are going to discuss about, but what kind. So our data belongs to which particular category among the multiple categories which I'm going to discuss about. So what kind of category our data belongs to, that important insight you will get to know in your first question. Then secondly, once you have got this idea that what kind of data you are having, then with respect to this kind of data, what do you want to communicate, right? If you want to communicate these insights, that is if you want to come up with some kind of comparison or some kind of composition or some kind of distribution analysis you want to perform, right? So that is where the communication aspect you need to look upon, right? And that is going to be the second question you have to uh, look upon, right? And then the third question is going to be that who is your end user. So definitely when you're working in a company, you are not exactly working with a specific person only, but you are working with different kind of people. Like either you will be working as a business analyst and a data analyst, and then you will be communicating your results either to a stakeholder or an executive, or you can communicate your important insights to a manager, right? Or you are communicating your important insight to another data analyst, right? So based on what type of person or who is your end user, as per that also you need to come up with the insights in a way wherein the kind of insights in which your end user is quite interested in, only that insight you will be representing in your dashboard. So all of the other insights which the stakeholder or a manager or a data analyst is not exactly interested in, that you won't be showing, right? So that's why if your end user is your manager, so as per the manager, what important insights you can show. In a similar way, if your end user is your data analyst fellow, then what important insights you can show. Or if your end user is like a stakeholder, or he or she is like a executive, then what important insights you can show. So each and every single aspect we are going to discuss about in these with respect to these three important key questions. So by stakeholder or executive, I mean to say that the same example with respect to Shark Tank, right? So in Shark Tank, you were looking upon that the company stakeholders or the top company CEOs were there, right? Or the founders were there. So with respect to them, how you can communicate your important insights, what kind of analysis they are quite interested in specifically. So all of those things you will be looking upon in this third question. So let us look upon the solution of each and every single question that we are discussing. That is what type of data, first of all, we are having, then what do we want to communicate, then who is our end user, right? So first of all, have a look upon the first question, that is what type of data we are having. So we have looked upon one of our table, that is the calendar lookup table, right? And this calendar lookup table was giving us the insight about the different years. So based on the date, based on the year, or based on month, we were coming up with some important answers, right? That in this specific year, what was my complete profit, what was my complete number of orders, or what is the revenue I'm generating, right? So you are doing some kind of analysis that is like a time series analysis. You are trying to convey this message that in this specific year, that is 2021, this was the revenue I have generated. Then in the year of 2022, this is the revenue I've generated, right? So you are showing some kind of analysis with respect to time period, right? And once you're having this kind of data, so this category of data, you can call it as time series kind of data, right? So we have seen into our data set itself that we are having one of the table, that is calendar lookup table. So calendar lookup table is completely concerned about the time series kind of data, right? Just because you are at the end of the day communicating the insights with respect to time only, right? So time series data we are already having. Then the second kind of information is going to be the financial kind of information. So what do I mean by financial information, right? So already you have looked upon into our previous videos that we were trying to calculate these important insights like the total revenue, total number of orders, what is the return percentage. So all of these important numbers that we were looking upon. So these important numbers are actually that specific numbers in which these top executives are interested in. As in Shark Tank, also you have seen that the stakeholders were asking to the founders that what is your revenue, what is your per capita income, what is your gross margin, right? So they're ultimately interested in these numbers only, right? And these numbers are nothing but the financial information. So again, into our data set itself, we have created some new columns, or we have created some kind of new measures, which is reflecting the information about the revenue, profit, return percentage, or the total number of orders, right? So again, in our data set, we are having this information that is the financial information, right? So in this way, you have to think about, right? In this way, you have to come up with the answer of your three questions. That if my given table is coming across this specific category or not. Like when I was looking upon this specific question, I knew that one of the table is representing the information with respect to calendar lookup. So I knew about this thing that I need to come up with the time series analysis, right? In a similar way, just because in my previous video, we were discussing about that how we can come up with the revenue or the profit or whatever the return percentage is or whatever the total number of orders is. So again, I was coming up with some important numbers, and that is the reason I can relate this information with respect to my financial information as well, or I can say that my data belongs to the financial category as well, right? So in this way, you have to think. And then with respect to the third kind of category we are going to have, and that is going to be the categorical kind of information. So again, we are having one of the table that is product categories. So among the product categories, we can compare at what is the revenue we are generating, right? So again, we are having some kind of categorical kind of information. In a similar way, we can have the information which is giving us and definitely when I will be creating this dashboard, you will get to see that what kind of information is required to be represented on what specific dashboard. Like when we are creating these dashboards, we are not exactly creating a particular dashboard only, but we are creating multiple dashboards. So what information should be displayed on the first dashboard and what information should be displayed on the second dashboard? That completely depends upon the stakeholder, or that completely depends upon your end user, right? So that is also something we are going to look upon. But whether if you want to represent the time series data, financial information, or categorical information, so in order to understand that, first of all, you need to have this idea, right? That what all categories of data we are having. Only then you can represent this data, right? As per your end user. So that's why we are discussing about this first question. So once we're done with this as well, then the next kind of information that we can look upon is going to be the geospatial data. So geospatial data belongs to the territory data, right? So in the territory lookup, we were having this information with respect to multiple countries, multiple continents, or with respect to multiple whatever information we were having, right? So we are looking upon the information as per the location, and whenever you're having some information with respect to the location, that information you will be keeping in your category, that is the geospatial category. So if you're having such kind of data, you will be putting into your geospatial category, right? And then the next category you can have is the textual data, right? So we are having some information from the customer table, which is giving us the insight about the customers, right? So we can come up with this analysis that who are our top 10 customers, top 100 customers. So at that point of time, we are just emphasizing on the textual information, right? So you can have something related to the textual information as well. Then we are having some information with respect to hierarchical kind of data as well, right? So we have looked upon this data that upon this hierarchical kind of information that we were having this product categories, product subcategories. So that is something we used to come up, or that is something we used to relate in the hierarchical kind of category, right? And then the seventh category you can have is going to be the funnel kind of category. This is also one of the category which is going to be there into your composition, right? So just after this, you can have the eighth category, and that is the last category, and that is going to be the survey. So you can have some information with respect to the survey as well. But these are going to be the top categories that you will look upon. That is a time series, financial, categorical, geospatial, textual, or hierarchical, right? So these are the eight categories, or these are the eight solution that you can find with respect to your first question. That is what type of data you are having. So just have a look upon your data set and just keep your data among these eight categories, right? And that is going to be the solution for your first question. And once you have figured out the type of data you are having, then we can move upon into our second question, and that is what do you want to communicate, right? So you can just have a look upon these eight categories. You can just simply categorize your data by just looking over your data, that what category your data fits into. Now, once we are done with this, we can come up with the second key question, and that is what do you want to communicate, right? So first of all, we were having we are having our data with respect to the product categories, right? So we can absolutely convey the information with respect to that what is the revenue we are generating among these multiple categories. Like in our previous video itself, we have shown you a lot many number of times that the different categories that you were having, like the bikes category, we were having some information with respect to accessories, then bikes, and something related to clothing. So we were always calculating, or we were always comparing the revenue or the profit or the orders among these multiple categories, right? So at that point of time, we were always comparing the information, or we were always comparing these numbers. And that is what our first communication type is going to be. So whether if you want to communicate the comparison analysis. So that is going, so when I'm starting with my second question, I will be first of all looking upon this aspect that whether if I want to come up with a comparison among these multiple categories. So if I want to come up with a comparison, like already definitely you can see upon this aspect that we are having the multiple categories, and definitely we want to compare our revenue among these multiple categories. So that's why comparison is going to be an important aspect of our communication. So that's why definitely we will be doing the comparison from our side. And for doing comparison, we are going to discuss about that what all visuals you are going to have if you want to communicate about the comparison. So these visuals are these multiple charts that you can see on the screen. So we are ultimately going to make the use of these visuals only. But what specific visual you can make the use of for the comparison? That is what we are going to discuss about. So first visual that you can make the use of is going to be column or bar chart. And let me tell you one thing, that bar chart is one of the most important chart, and definitely I will be showing you a lot many number of visuals when we will be discussing about these things. But the point is that bar chart is one of the most important chart which is being used for the comparison basis among the multiple categories. That's why you should always have a kind of great idea about bar chart. I mean, if you're coming from a Python background as well, and if you have some details about Matplotlib or Seaborn as well, then you definitely might be aware about the bar chart, right? So bar chart you should always have a kind of clear look upon. Then the second kind of chart we can have is going to be clustered column. And then the third one is going to be the data table or the heat map. Data table, again, we have shown you a kind of matrix kind of visual, like this data label is table is going to be there. So table will be representing this information that what all multiple categories we are having. And with respect to every category, we can represent this information that what is the revenue we are generating, profit we are generating, and all of these important numbers we can relate with respect to multiple rows. And that's exactly how we used to create this table, right? So data table we can have, then after that we can have this radar chart. Radar chart is also one of the most, not exactly one of the most, but it is an important chart to show the information among the multiple categories. Then we can have line chart. Line chart is quite important, right? Line chart is quite important just because it is being used for the time series analysis, right? So we have already discussed about this thing that and to the stakeholders in Shark Tank, they were discussing about, they were asking these questions that what is the revenue you are generating throughout these years, right? And whenever you are discussing about these things, you are ultimately coming up with the time series analysis. And for the time series analysis, you will be making the use of line chart, and that's why line chart is quite important. And then you can come up with this area chart. Area chart is also being used for time series analysis itself, but among line chart and area chart, mostly we will be going forward with the line chart itself, just because it is mostly being preferred by the companies or by the stakeholders to look upon your important insights, right? So first of all, if you want to communicate with respect to the comparison, then these are going to be the charts or the visuals that you can make the use of. And the second communicating factor is going to be with respect to the composition. So composition actually help you out in breaking down the multiple component parts of a whole, right? Like if you want to break down the information among the multiple categories, so that information, so if you want to show the information with respect to this, the complete composition that a specific category is having, if you want to show that as well, then you can come up with this, right? So for breaking down the information, you can simply make the use of it. And for this, you can come up with the stacked bar, or you can make the use of column chart. Then you can make the use of pie or donut chart. Pie chart is one of the most important chart again that you will be looking upon, and donut chart as well. These are the important charts which are being shown mostly by the companies for the composition. So mostly the companies are interested in this pie chart and donut chart only for the comparison basis. And donut chart we will be making the use of in one of our dashboard. That's why it's quite important, right? And then the stacked area you can make the use of again for the time series, but not actually quite important it is. And then you can come up with this waterfall chart. Why exactly we're discussing about this multiple chart, so that you can come up with this insight that what chart you should make the use of in what scenario. So for gains and losses, you can come up with this waterfall chart. Then funnel chart, you can make the use of, as you were discussing, that funnel kind of information we can also have for representing the multiple stages. And then we can have again a very important chart, and that is tree map. So tree map is again one of the most important charts just because it is being used for representing the hierarchical kind of information, right? So tree map and pie chart and donut chart is something you always need to look upon when you are showing the composition, right? So we will be definitely exploring about these charts into our videos itself. So that is going to be the second thing that you want to communicate. And then the third result that you can communicate with the stakeholders, and that is going to be the distribution. So distribution will be simply like, for example, one of the best example I can provide you with respect to distribution is, for example, if you want to communicate with respect to the stakeholders that what is the total number of orders you are getting among these multiple countries, right? So you are ultimately considering the distribution aspect only, right? That how exactly your orders are being distributed among the multiple countries, or how exactly your revenue is distributed among the multiple continents. So at that point of time, you are going to make the use of, at that point of time, you are going to communicate about your distribution kind of analysis. And for communicating about the distribution analysis, you can come up with a histogram. Histogram is again one of the most important chart that will be helping us out for the distribution. And then density plot is also quite important. You might would have came across it when you were making the use of Python, right? Then box and whisper can be important, not exactly too much important as compared to that. Histogram and density plot. And then scatter plot is also quite important. Scatter plot, again, you will be making the use of for most of the time. Scatter plot is again important. Then you can make the use of data table. Already we have discussed about it, or heat map. And then you can have our map. So map we have already discussed about will be helping you out to work with the geospatial kind of data, that is the location based data, countries data, continents data, so that you can again distribute, you can discuss about this thing that how your data or how your numbers are being distributed among the multiple countries. That's why map is again quite important, right? Map is always going to be important. So for geospatial analysis, you are going to make the use of map, right? And then the final thing that you can communicate is going to be the relationship. So relationship will be giving you the kind of idea about, or you can find out the correlation among the multiple variables, right? So relationship inside you can come up with via making the use of scatter plot. Again, scatter plot is quite important here. That's why we are making the use of it for the relationship. Then you can come up with a bubble chart, not too much important. Data table, we have discussed about this thing, that data table. And heat map as well, you can make the use of. And finally, you can make the use of correlation matrix. You might would have made the use of correlation matrix most of the time, right? And matrix, we have already discussed about this thing in our previous videos, so you might be aware about it, and it's quite important again. Just because we are going to make the use of it for the comparison basis as well, or for the relationship basis as well, right? So these are going to be the different kind of analysis you can communicate with your end user. So now let us finally discuss about this thing, or with respect to our final question, that who is our end user, right? And now if I want to discuss about that, then we will be getting started with our first end user, and that is an analyst. So for example, if you want to communicate your insights, like first of all, we have discussed about this thing that based on what kind of data, we are going to categorize it either as a time series kind of data, financial kind of data, hierarchical kind of data, or the multiple categories that we have discussed about. Then once we are getting this idea that what kind of data we are having, and the second question we were asking to us for is that what do we want to communicate? If I want to communicate the comparison analysis, or if I want to communicate the composition analysis, distribution analysis, or relationship analysis. And then finally, who we are communicating to, or who is our end user. That is the third question we are asking, right? So first of all, if our end user is an analyst, then the analyst is always interested in to see details. So details and a data analyst or any analyst like a data analyst or business analyst always want to see some kind of deep details, right? Some kind of important answers that you came up with. So definitely, if you are communicating to an analyst, you need to show all of the important findings that you came out with into a dashboard, right? So analyst is always interested in looking upon the important details and wants to know that what is happening at the granular level. That means at a depth level, right? So at a depth level, you have to communicate with the analyst. So that is definitely quite important, right? So just because the analyst is already having this idea to work with Power BI, so definitely you need to show this important insights to the analyst so that they can have this idea that what are the changes we are making from our side, what are the important findings we are coming from our side, right? So that's why if you are if you want to communicate your results or if your end user is an analyst, then you need to show all of the important insights or most of your important insights on that basis, right? So you can come up with these tables or the combo charts. Then you can show these granular details to ultimately support the root cause analysis, right? So this is going to be a first and end user, that is an analyst. Then secondly, a second end user can be an manager. So if you're working in a company, definitely you will be working across a manager only. So if you're working across a manager, then manager always want the summarized kind of information, just because manager are obviously not that much free as compared to an analyst. I mean, definitely analyst is also not free, but as compared to an analyst, manager has to manage multiple people in the company, right? So that's why they are not exactly that much free. So that's why you want to summarize your information. So the manager is always interested in the summarized kind of actionable insights, right? What exactly do I mean by an actionable insight? By that, I mean to say that manager is always interested in this thing, that what are the insights you're coming up with that we can look upon so that we can make some important decision, and that will be ultimately helping the company out to expand their business. So actionable insights are going to be those specific insights which you're coming up with so that managers just can have a look upon those specific insights only and they can make some important decision, right? So that will be ultimately helping the company out to grow their business. So that's why you always have to come up with these summarized kind of insights, right? So that manager in a small period of time will get to know your important findings, right? So you always have to come up with these actionable insights, and it should be clear to operate the business, that we have already discussed about. So again, you can come up with these common charts and graphs you can make the use of, right? So this is going to be something you will be doing when you're working under a manager. And then finally, your final end user can be an executive. So executive is similar to that of the Shark Tank example that we were considering, that you're going to have some large company CEO or the founder and you want to come up with some important answers, right? So you might would have seen in that show itself that they always used to ask some kind of important answers. And what is the revenue you are generating? What is the per capita income? What is the gross margin? What is the total number of orders you are getting from which specific country? So they are always interested in getting these information in a very short period of time, right? In just a minute. So that's why when you are trying to communicate your insights in a minute itself, then you need to communicate your insights in such a way such that a high level information you should provide from your side. You might would have seen that the entrepreneurs doesn't really spend a lot of time in delivering these numbers to these large company CEOs. Just because large company CEOs are definitely too much busy, right? So the entrepreneurs are required to be trained in such a way such that they can just deliver the important information itself, right? And that is an important reason whenever you are working across an executive. So you have to come up with a high level analysis, right? So you have to show the important information in which the company is quite interested in. And that's why you will be giving a kind of high level analysis to these executive or to these CEOs, and a kind of crystal clear KPIs you can come up with. So by a crystal clear KPIs, I will be showing you that what do we exactly mean by a KPIs. And most of the time you would have seen that whenever you are trying to join as a data analyst or a business analyst, the companies are having this criteria that they used to work upon, and they always used to ask that whether if you are comfortable with creating these KPI reports or not. That's why KPI is quite important, and it is a kind of chart you can say, or a kind of visual you can say, wherein whatever important number you want to show, you can directly show it. Directly, you can show your important numbers into a kind of visual itself, so that the executive will get to have that information. And definitely, by looking upon that information itself, they will get to know that what is your important information from the company, and whether if they should invest in your company or not. Right? Right. So that's why you are going to come up with these KPI cards, and that is what we use to show if your end user is going to be an executive, right? So for this specific scenario, you can come up with these KPI cards or the simple charts, right? So that the important answers in which the executive is interested in, that is something you can show. And you can show some kind of minimal details, right? Not exactly a large amount of details the company is quite interested in. You just have to show the minimal details unless and until it adds up some kind of critical context to the KPIs. So KPIs is quite important whenever you are working, and that's why we are going to emphasize a lot upon these KPIs. In the first dashboard itself, I will be showing you this KPI kind of reports, right? So you have to show the minimal details until and unless it adds critical context to KPIs, right? So that's exactly how it used to work. Whenever you are working as a business analyst or a data analyst, first of all, you have to ask these three important key questions to yourself: that what is the type of data the company has provided to me. Once you are done with that, you need to come up with this answer, that what do you exactly want to communicate. If you want to show some kind of comparison or some kind of composition, or what kind of analysis you want to come up with, that is the second question you should ask yourself. And once you are done with that, then you need to look upon this fact that who is your end user. Whether if your end user is an analyst or an executive or a manager, right? So we will be looking upon this fact, upon these three questions itself, when we will be covering our next video, when we will be creating our kind of pictorial representation. I will be showing you a kind of pictorial representation, that how we are coming up with a proper approach, or how we are exactly planning to create a dashboard. And at that point of time only, we are also going to focus upon these three questions itself, right? So let us meet in the next video with looking upon a kind of pictorial representation, with a discussion about our final dashboard creation, that how we are exactly going to approach our dashboard. So that would be all regarding an introduction video regarding the data analysis section, or one of the most important section, that is the visualizing dashboard. And let us meet in the next video with the pictorial representation of our final dashboard. So thank you. All right, guys, so let us get started with our dashboard sketch, wherein we are going to discuss about this thing, that how exactly we are going to cater our specific dashboard, right? So we have already looked upon our data, that what kind of data we had, and as per that data itself, we are coming up with a kind of sketch. So this sketch you always have to create from your side as per the requirements, and as per what kind of data you are having, and as per the three questions that we were discussing up till now, right? So as per that itself, we are going to discuss about each and every single thing. So first of all, we have discussed about this thing, that with respect to our data, we are having our end user as the executive, or we are having the end user as a manager, right? So definitely the executive or the manager will be interested in getting the information regarding the important details itself. So whatever important numbers you came up with, that is the revenue, and that is the total order percentage, that is a return percentage, or we came across the total number of orders as well. So conveying the information regarding these important numbers is one of our important goal, and that is going to be our first goal itself. So with respect to the multiple goals we are having, first of all, we have to track the KPIs. So KPIs we have already looked upon in our previous video as well. These KPIs are going to be a kind of card. So this card will be helping us out to reflect the information with respect to the important numbers which we came up with. So total revenue, the information like the total revenue, total number of orders, the return percentage, the total profit that the company is generating. So if you want to come up with a complete aggregation of these numbers, then we can come up with these KPI cards, right? And this information is going to be that information in which our executives are quite interested in. So whenever you are working in a company or whenever you are working under an executive or a manager, you have to reflect the information regarding these important numbers, right? So that's why the first thing that you need to do is to simply show these KPI cards in the first phase of the dashboard itself. So in the front page itself or in the front dashboard itself, in the top portion, you have to show these numbers, these aggregation numbers, which is reflecting the information that is giving the information over all of these 4 years, right? So just because our data belongs to an time span of 4 years, so that's why the complete aggregation number regarding that idea we will be conveying with respect to these KPI cards itself. Now, once we're done with that, then the second information in which the stakeholder is quite interested in is the regional performance, right? So, for example, if a company is there, so if the company is having their sale among the multiple countries or among the multiple regions, so we have already looked upon in our data that we were having the information with respect to these multiple countries, these multiple continents, and along with that, we were having the information with respect to multiple regions. So at this point of time, we are having the information with respect to the different location. And that's why, just because the stakeholders are always quite interested in is what are the number of orders we are getting with respect to multiple region, or what is the total profit we are generating among these multiple regions. So that's why it's always important to to put a kind of glance over this regional performance, right? And that is going to be a second goal. So once we are done with displaying or conveying the information with respect to these important numbers, then we can move forward with our second goal, and that is to compare the regional performance. So a geospatial analysis, you can call it as, or whatever location information you're having regarding. So information regarding that you can simply convey with respect to your second goal. Then with respect to your third goal, you have to analyze the product level trends, right? So in our data, we are having around three number of tables which are conveying the information with respect to the multiple product categories we are having. So one of the table is displaying the information with respect to the product categories, and we are having product subcategories, and we are having one of the table which is representing the information about the product lookup. So definitely we have to come up with a comparison kind of criteria, which will be helping us out to compare these numbers among the multiple categories we are having. So this is going to be the third aspect in which the stakeholder is quite interested in, or our executive, our end user is quite interested in. That's why we have to come up with this specific aspect as our third goal. And then finally, we have to identify our top level customers. So this information mostly the executive is not quite interested in. They are mostly interested in these numbers, that is the KPI card information. Along with that, the regional information, right? That what is the total number of orders, or how exactly these numbers can be related or are being distributed among the multiple regions. So these are the two important information they are quite interested in, and then we can look upon the aspect of the product categories as well. But the customer base they are definitely not quite interested in. But if you are working under a manager, so manager is definitely interested in your customer base, right? So that's why as our fourth goal we have to identify our high level customers, and that's why our fourth goal is to identify these high level customers itself, right? So these are going to be our four goals, and with respect to the four goals, we are required to create around four number of dashboards, which will be reflecting the information as per the requirement we are having, right? So as per our first goal, we have to first of all come up with these KPI cards, which are reflecting the information with respect to these numbers. With respect to our second goal, we have to give a kind of analysis with respect to the geospatial kind of data we are having. Then with respect to the multiple product categories we are having, we have to reflect these numbers with respect to these categories. And then finally, the information that is there with respect to our customer base. So we have to put a filter upon our numbers with respect to this customer base, right? So these are going to be our four goals, and we have to come up with these dashboards which will be reflecting the information with respect to these four goals itself. And now once we are done with that, then we are going to come up with our three important questions. So whenever you are going forward with any of the approach, you always have to look upon these three questions, right? So with respect to our problem statement, our first question is going to be that what kind of data we are having. So we have already looked upon that we are having a table which is representing the information with respect to the different locations we are having, right? We were having one of the table as the territory lookup. So that's why we are going to have the geospatial kind of data. So we have to come up with a map, right? That will be giving us the analysis with respect to the distribution, right? So that is going to be the first kind of data we are having. Then we are having one of the table that is the calendar lookup table. So that will be giving us the insight with respect to the time period, right? That what is the profit we are generating and what is the total number of orders we are generating with respect to a specific time span. So that is going to be the second kind of data we are having. Then just because we had a large number of tables, around three number of tables we are having, which is conveying the information with respect to the product categories. But definitely a categorical kind of information we are also having. Then we are having the information just because we were discussing about that, we are having one of the calendar lookup tables. So we have to come up with this time series kind of data. And then we were having the information with respect to multiple product categories and subcategories. So kind of hierarchical kind of data we are also having, right? And one of the most important information, that is the financial information in which the stakeholders is quite interested in. This financial information is going to be those numbers that we were having, right? So this revenue is going to be in financial information, the total profit that the company is generating, the return percentage, the total number of orders. So all of these important numbers is going to be your financial information, right? So this is the type of information we are having, and what this is the type of data we are having, and that what comes up as the solution of our first key question. Then with respect to our second key question, we have to answer this out that what do we exactly want to communicate, right? So we have already discussed about this thing that with respect to our data, just because we are going to come up with the difference in the revenue that is being generated among the multiple categories, right? So that's why we have to focus upon these visuals, which is giving us the insight with respect to the comparison criteria, right? So how these numbers, that is the revenue, profit, or the orders, is varying with respect to the multiple categories. So that information we first of all have to reflect, right? So comparison is going to be one of the aspect that we need to communicate. Then we are having the information with respect to the multiple location. So geospatial data we are also having, that is going to be the second aspect. So that's why a distributive kind of analysis we are also required to do. Then we are having the information with respect to the customer base as well. So that's why composition kind of data we are also having, right? So this is going to be the third three kind of analysis which we are required to communicate to the stakeholders. And then at the end, who is our end user? So we have already discussed about this thing that our end user is coming out to be as an executive. So executive is just like that Shark Tank investor who is always interested in these numbers, like the financial information. So that's why, as per that aspect itself, we are going to come up with a dashboard. So now we can look upon our dashboard. So you can see that I've just given you a kind of sketch, right? At how we can create this dashboard. So every time when you are going forward with creating a dashboard, you have to come up with this sketch, right? You have to create a sketch on your own, which will be reflecting the information with respect to the multiple visuals you are having into these multiple dashboards, right? Just because we are having a large amount of data, we are having the geospatial information as well, we are having the comparison kind of information or categorical kind of information as well, and time series data we are having, then financial information we are having, textual data we are also having, right? Just because we are having such a large amount of data, so that's why we need to come up with multiple dashboards to reflect the important information among these multiple dashboards, right? So whenever you are creating a dashboard, there is going to be two pattern that you can simply come up with. The first pattern is going to be the F pattern, right? So with respect to this F pattern, whenever an executive is looking upon your information or your insights that you are representing, so they will be first of all going with this first fragment of the dashboard, that is this first line, and then they will be going forward with the second line, and then they will be looking upon this specific line. So kind of F shape, a kind of F pattern that you can see over here, in which the executive used to look upon your dashboard to come up with the insights. And then the second pattern that we can have is going to be the Z pattern, right? So with respect to the Z pattern, first of all, you need to look upon the first fragment or the top fragment, and then the executive will be looking upon this information in this way along this pattern, and then the final fragment they will be looking upon, right? So these are going to be the two patterns in which the executive used to look upon your insights with respect to the dashboard that you are creating, right? So now with respect to this dashboard, we are representing the information as per our end user itself, right? So we have already discussed about this thing that whenever your end user is going to be an executive, then you have to reflect the first information, and that is these numbers, right? So this aggregation analysis you are required to do. So in the DAX section itself, we were coming up with these numbers. That is the total return percentage we are coming up with, or total revenue we are coming up with, or total profit, or the total number of orders. So we have already discussed about these things, right? And the company executive is always interested in these aspects only. They are always interested in getting the information with respect to what is the total number of orders you are getting from these 4 years time span. A complete aggregation value they are quite interested in. So that's why uh, if you're following the F pattern as well or the Z pattern itself, you are always required to come up with the first fragment, right? F pattern is also going to be like this, right? The executive will be looking upon the first fragment of your dashboard. And then with respect to the Z pattern as well, you are required to come up with this dashboard wherein the first fragment itself will be representing the important information, right? That's why in the first fragment of your dashboard itself, you have to come up with the important information in which your end user is quite interested in, and that is these numbers, right? Just because of that, first of all, you have to come up with this visual that is a KPI card, right? So these KPI cards are going to be those visuals which will be helping you out to show these aggregation values. So your total orders you can represent over here, your total profit that the company has been generating, then what is the total revenue that the company is generating, and what is the total return percentage. So all of these important numbers you can show in the first fragment of your dashboard itself, right? And once you're done with that, then you can move forward with creating a kind of logo as well, right? Just because we were not exactly focusing upon a specific company, but for our use case, let us go forward with company logo, and that is Amazon logo. So this data doesn't really belong to Amazon, but with respect to our use case, let us consider that this data belongs to Amazon. So we are going to come up with a logo of Amazon itself, and that I'm going to put, or that I'm going to insert in the first fragment itself, in the leftmost end, right? So that is going to be the first fragment. Once we're done with that, then let us move upon the second information in which the executive is quite interested in. And that is going to be the decomposition of these numbers, right? So in the first fragment itself, you're representing the information with respect to the aggregation values, right? The complete profit that the company has generated, the complete revenue, and the complete number of orders that the company is coming up with. But we are not exactly focusing upon the decomposition at this point, right? That how these numbers are distributed among these multiple years, right? So just because if I'm having the data which is reflecting the information from the year of 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, right? So 4 years information we are having, right? So we have to come up with these numbers which are coming up as a kind of comparison among these multiple years, so that the stakeholder will get to know that whether if you are having a kind of increase in revenue or not, or a decrease in revenue. And then you have to come up with this answer as well, that if the revenue is not exactly coming as per your target revenue, and what can be the potential reason behind it, right? But first of all, before answering that reason, you have to show that what is the revenue you are generating among these multiple years, right? But just because of that only, we will be coming up with kind of time series analysis over here. So our second visual is going to be a line chart, which will be helping us out to come up with the time series analysis. And that will be reflecting the information either by your number of years or by a number of months. That is completely upon you. So if you're working under an executive, then definitely they are quite interested in the revenue among these multiple years itself, and not exactly on the months. But if you are required to come up with a more decomposed kind of information, then in the next visual itself, you can again create these kind of cards, or you can come up with these KPI visuals, which will be reflecting the information with respect to the monthly decomposition of this revenue, right? So what is the revenue you are generating in this specific month? What is the revenue you have generated in the previous month? And what is the month by month revenue? So you are just showing these numbers only to the executive, but more in a kind of decomposed way, right? So that is what we are representing. And once we are done with, yeah, definitely you can provide some kind of context over here as well. You can simply show a kind of name, right? That we are showing or we are representing the monthly decomposition of these numbers or this revenue, right? And once we're done with that, then we can move forward with the next visual, and that is giving us the information with respect to the decomposition of these numbers among the multiple categories. So we have discussed about this thing that we are having one of the table which is reflecting the information with respect to the multiple product categories we are having, right? So with respect to these multiple product categories, how our revenue is being distributed or how our profit or the orders are being distributed, that information we are required to convey. So that we can convey by making the use of this stacked bar chart itself, right? So again, you're representing this number, but more in a kind of decomposed way. And then you can show your top 10 products as well, that among your product categories, what are your top 10 products? And then you can show these numbers associated with these products, right? That the top 10 products, what exactly the profit they're generating, what is the revenue they're generating, what is the return percentage, what is the total number of orders, right? So in the first dashboard itself, you always have to convey the information with respect to these numbers itself, right? What is the numerical pattern that is being associated with respect to your data set, right? And once the company is getting this idea, then if they are quite interested in your pitch, or if they're quite interested in looking upon your information, then they can move forward with the second dashboard as well. Just because of that, we can come up with a second dashboard as our map visual or the geospatial analysis, right? So one thing we're doing over here, that just because we want to create this kind of dashboard in a more like a kind of web page kind of pattern, you know, just because of that, in my leftmost end, I will be creating a kind of nav bar over here. So it's like a sidebar. So this sidebar will be helping you out to navigate among these multiple dashboards, right? So you can simply click on any of the visual over here or any of the sidebar, and then you will be able to navigate to these multiple dashboards that you are creating, right? So these multiple options that you can see over here are nothing but the different nav bars which you can click upon, or the different sidebar that you can click upon, so that you will be able to navigate to the multiple dashboards that you are creating. So once I'm clicking on the second option, you will get to navigate to the second dashboard, and that is representing the information with respect to the geospatial analysis. So once the company is getting the idea with respect to your aggregation values, that what is the total revenue the company has generated among these years, then what is the year by year revenue the company is generating, what is the month by month distribution among the multiple product categories, what is the complete revenue they're generating, and then if I'm having some information with respect to some specific product categories as well, then with respect to that, how exactly these numbers can be varied. So that information is something the company is quite interested in. So once you have reflected this complete information in the first dashboard itself, then you can move forward with the second information or second dashboard, which will be giving you the insight with the distributive analysis. That among these multiple countries, among these multiple components, what is the complete revenue that the company is generating? And then you have to come up with these slicers. So the slicer will be helping us out to basically show the distribution of this complete profit data or the revenue among these multiple countries itself, right? So the second visual you will be creating is going to be the map that will be representing the information with respect to the distributive analysis among the multiple countries you are having, or with respect to the multiple location you are having. And once you're done with that as well, then you can come up with the third dashboard, and then that will be reflecting the information with respect to the multiple product data you are having. So you can again come up with the time series analysis. You can come up with this bar chart. You can come up with this Gantt chart, right? So this will be again conveying the information with respect to what is the revenue you are generating, what is the number of orders you are generating with respect to these multiple product categories you are having. And once you're done with that as well, you can come up with your fourth dashboard, and that is reflecting the information with respect to your customer base. So the composition analysis that you are referring to, that we are going to do with respect to our customer dashboard itself. So as we were discussing in our four goals itself, that just because the companies are always interested in these aggregation values, so our first dashboard is going to be that dashboard which is representing the KPI information. Then the second dashboard will be reflecting the information with respect to regional performance. And then the third aspect in which the companies or the executive are quite interested in is going to be the product categories, that what are your top product categories which is generating the maximum amount of revenue. That's why the third dashboard will be created in that way. And then if you're working under a manager, then definitely you have to come up with this information that what all top customers we are having. And then if I'm having some kind of categorical information, like on the basis of education, we were coming up with these bachelor's data or non-bachelor, and we were simply decomposing this customer base with respect to these multiple categories, right? So with respect to our customer base as well, these decomposed categories as well, we can come up with this composition analysis. So this data is also something in which the manager is quite interested in. So that's why we can convey this information with respect to our fourth dashboard as well. But the most important information will be conveyed to our executive is going to be with this first dashboard itself. Right. So that's why the most of our time we will be spending with respect to the first dashboard only, because that will be ultimately helping the stakeholder out or the executive out, that whether if they're interested in your important insights or not. Right. So we will be coming up with a kind of step-by-step approach, as first of all, we will be discussing that how we can come up with the first dashboard that is representing the important insights that the executive is quite interested in. Then we will be moving forward with a second dashboard that is coming up as a kind of geospatial analysis. Once we're done with that as well, we can come up with our product categories information, and then we can finally move upon our customer base so that we can come up with some important insights to our manager as well, right? So this sketch you always have to create from your side as well, so that you can simply have a complete idea, a kind of way by way, a step-by-step approach, right? That how exactly you will be coming up with a proper approach to create your dashboard, right? So let us meet in the next video. Let us have a look upon the multiple visuals we are having, and how exactly the interface of this Power BI look like, right? This report view, how exactly it look like, and then we will be moving forward with creating or finally coming up with the practical implementation of these dashboards, right? So that would be all in the sketch of the dashboard, and let us meet in the next video. So thank you. All right, guys, so let us get started with our practical implementation. So in this particular video, we won't be focusing too much on the practical implementation, but we will be looking upon this UI interface, right? So what all things we will be exploring in this video is going to be the multiple categories that we can see over here, or the multiple ribbon options that we are having over here. So each and every single ribbon option we are going to explore that in what specific ribbon option we are quite interested in, and what all facilities or what all tools we can have with respect to each and every single ribbon option that we are going to have, right? So let us explore this UI interface that you can see on the screen. So the first ribbon that we are having is going to be an insert ribbon, right? So this insert ribbon will be helping you out to come up with these visuals. So whatever important questions that we were discussing in the first video itself, that with respect to what kind of analysis we want to perform, or what kind of insights we want to convey to the stakeholder, as per that only we can come up with these different kind of visuals that we are having, right? So if I'm just clicking over here on this drop down option, you will get to see that we are having these multiple categories, that is the bar and column chart, then the line and area chart, waterfall, tunnel. So waterfall funnel we have already discussed about, but that completely depends upon what kind of information you want to convey. So you can see one thing over here, right? So with respect to our use case itself, we were discussing that if we are trying to represent the information with respect to the financial data, then we are going to come up with these KPI cards, right? So as per the previous question, or as per the first question itself, if you are trying to display the information to the stakeholder with respect to your financial data itself, then KPI card can be one of the best option. And there are going to be, and there are so many number of upgradation that you can see on the screen, as initially we don't really had the specific option that is card new. So why exactly they are naming it like that? Just because this option came in the last year itself by Power BI, as we were mentioning in one of our previous videos itself in the first section, that Power BI always used to come up with these upgradation. They used to come up with these monthly upgradation, and this specific card option that you can see on the screen is one of the upgradation itself, and that we are going to discuss about in one of our last section, right? So we will be covering up this aspect that what all new upgradation Power BI is coming up with. But with respect to our use case, we will be making the use of this card option itself. And this multi-row card option you can also have, and then this KPI. This KPI is something in which the stakeholders are quite interested in. So definitely we will be exploring it, right? And then the slicer is going to be one of an important tool. So again, and kind of upgradation you can see on the screen, that is a slicer option you can have, or you can have this new slicer option as well. Then the table and the matrix, which will be giving you the insight with respect to a kind of comparison kind of point, right? So how your numbers are getting varied with respect to the multiple categories that you are having. So again, matrix is something we are going to make the use of in the first dashboard itself, just because the companies or the executive are quite interested in looking forward to these details at how your revenue, how your profit, or how your orders is getting varied with respect to the multiple product categories you're having. Right. So that's why this options we are also going to explore. And one great thing about Power BI is that they all used to keep their complete kind of chart and visuals with respect to a specific use case itself. Like for example, if you want to come up with a comparison kind of analysis, then you can make the use of this bar and column chart, right? Then if you want to come up with a time series analysis, then you can make the use of these line charts. Then for relationship criteria, you can come up with this scatter plot, right? Then for the composition criteria, you can come up with this pie chart, donut chart, right? So definitely in our customer base dashboard that we were discussing about, we will be exploring about this donut chart and the pie chart itself. And then with respect to our geospatial data, we are going to explore this map option that you can see on the screen. So these are going to be the multiple visuals that you can have in Power BI itself. So one great thing about this is that you can explore this specific option itself, but just because with respect to our first question, we were discussing that what kind of analysis we want to perform, right? If I want to go forward with the geospatial kind of analysis, or if I want to go forward with the time series analysis. So that's why keeping all of the visuals with respect to your own use case is quite important. And this is something you can have over here itself, right? And that's why we can have this option over here itself. And then once, and mostly we will be going forward with this specific option itself with respect to our own whole section, just because this specific option itself will be providing us all of the visuals in which we are quite interested in. Right. So once we are done with this, we can move forward with the AI visuals. So these AI visuals we are not exactly going to make the use of in this particular section, as in our next section itself, we are going to discuss about these AI visuals. But one great thing about AI visuals is that as the transition is coming, and with respect to the time, right? As we can see that AI nowadays can perform this data analysis. So we are having these multiple AI visuals that we can make the use of if we want to make this process automated, right? If I don't really want these, if I don't really want these visuals to convey all of the information itself, and if I want some help from the AI side as well, then we can make the use of these AI visuals. So these upgradations are something which Power BI is coming up in every month, so that you can make the use of AI. You can simply integrate AI into your Power BI itself, so that some more deep insights you can convey via making the use of Power BI itself, right? And via making the use of AI. So in the next section, we will be exploring these AI visuals, and then we can have this Power Automate button. So this is, so with respect to our own use case, we are not exactly required to explore these options. That is a Power App, Power Automate. And these options you will only be able to explore when you're doing the sign in over here. So in our further videos, we will be showing you that how exactly you can sign in with respect to your account. But Power App is something is like an upgradation which you will get to see once you're having an account, right? But with respect to our use case, Power BI, Power App, Power Automate, or Page United Report is not exactly playing a kind of crucial role over here. So that's why we want to be exploring that. And then we can have these multiple elements. So if you want to copy an image, if you want to paste it over here, that is something you can do. If you want to simply put or insert and shape over here, that is also something you can do. Then even if you want to insert a button, so button will be helping you out to navigate from multiple pages, right? On clicking on a button, if you want to navigate to some another web URL as well, that is also something you can do, right? So these multiple elements you can also have. So all of these important visuals or all of these important elements you can have in this insert tab itself. So this insert tab or this insert page, this insert ribbon we will be mostly exploring in this overall section itself, just because it is consisting of the important tools itself, which we are quite interested in for creating the dashboard, right? And once we are done with that, then we can move forward with our second important ribbon, and that is going to be the view ribbon. So it is not as much as important as compared to that of the insert button, but definitely some kind of information you can have over here as well. That is, if you want to change the theme over here. So the background theme that you can see for your dashboard, if you want to change it, you can have this option over here. You can simply go forward with clicking, and you can simply go forward with browsing and theme as well. So if you're simply having a theme, or if you're having an image, then you can simply copy it over here. You can simply import it, and then you will be able to make the use of that theme into Power BI itself. And then you can simply fit this dashboard with respect to your use case as well. If you can fit it to the page, you can fit it to the width or the actual size, you can also keep it. And then in one of our last videos, we will be exploring about this mobile layout, at how exactly a dashboard is going to look like into an mobile format, right? So we won't be exploring about that in this specific video, but mobile layout is also an important criteria that we are going to discuss about, and we need to look upon this information as well, that we are going to discuss about in one of our last videos. And then we can have these page options like lock objects, snap to grid lines. So if I'm creating some visual, and if I want to keep the visual over there intact itself, then I can make the use of this lock objects option. So once you're done with creation of your dashboard, you can simply lock your objects, or you can simply lock your visuals, so that your visual would gonna remain as it is into a particular place, right? And once you're done with that, then you can see these multiple options which are already being clicked, or which are already being checked. So performance analyzer is one of the AI tool itself that we will be exploring when we are going forward with the AI section. Then you can have this option, that is selection option. So we will be exploring about this as well. And you can have these other options over here as well. That is the data option. So if you are unchecking it, you will get to see that this option that you were viewing over here, that you won't be able to see. In a similar way, you won't be able to see these visuals on the screen if you're just unchecking it. And then the format option you also won't be able to see if you are unchecking it, right? So if you want all of these information, or if you want all of these tools in your UI interface itself, then you can simply check it out, right? And first of all, let me show you that how we can first of all insert an image over here. So I will be starting with the practical implementation itself in this video only, right? So let me first of all show you that how you can come up with your first page, and that is the first report page in which the companies or the executive are quite interested in. So as we were discussing in the previous video itself, that once we are coming across this dashboard, then with respect to our first page, the first thing that we can do is to simply put the company's logo, right? Just because we are referencing Amazon over here, so that's why we will be referencing the image or the logo over here with respect to Amazon itself. So again, you have to go back to the insert button. So with respect to this insert ribbon itself, you can come up with this image option, right? So you can add an image to your report with these elements you can have over here itself. And now you can make the use of this option, wherein with respect to your folder itself, you're going to have this Amazon logo, right? So simply you can import any of the image as you want, right? So I'm importing an Amazon logo over here. Definitely this data doesn't belong to Amazon, but we're just referencing it as a logo, right? So let me keep my logo over here itself, and I will be leaving some space over here on the left hand side. You will get to know that why we are leaving some space. And now, as we were discussing, that just because we are creating this dashboard for the executive or for the manager itself, so that's why I need to come up with these KPI cards right now, right? These KPI cards which will be helping us out to reflect the important information. But before exactly coming up with these KPI cards, I need to provide these KPI cards with some kind of background, right? Some proper background in which I can keep these KPI cards, right? So that it will look a kind of bit better. So for that itself, let me insert a shape over here. So among these multiple shapes, let us go forward with this specific, a rounded kind of rectangle, right? And let me just, if I'm just having this shape right now over here, so if you'll just right click, you will get to see this option of format, where you can simply format this button as well, right? And then you will get to have all of these options, like what is the size and style you want to choose, like what is the height you want to keep for it, and then what is the width you want to keep for it, right? So each and every single info you can change over here, right? And then what is the properties you want to associate with respect to your visual or whatever button you are inputting over here, right? So each and every single aspect you will get to have when you are going forward with this format option. So how exactly you can present your visual, that completely depends upon your shape or the format shape option itself, right? And now if I'm going forward with the size and style, then you will get to see that you can keep your height over here as 100 pixel, right? And let me put my width over here as up to 225. Okay, and this is going to be the standard shape that we are going to keep from our side for the four important information that we are going to display. And one thing you can see over here that we are able to see the alignment, right? So it's a kind of great property by Power BI itself, that you will be able to align your multiple visuals with respect to each other, right? You can see that line over here. Well, just because I will be reflecting four important information to the stakeholders. So first of all, I need to convey this message regarding the total number of orders and total number of return percentage and total profit and then total return, then total revenue. Just because of that, let me copy it and let me paste it for 4 times or 3 times, right? And now we are having these four different kind of rectangle shape that you can make the use of in order to represent those cards, right? And one thing you can do over here, and that is you can just simply go forward with clicking. Like you can just click on your canvas. Canvas is going to be this background. Just click over here and let us select all of these options. And once you're selecting all of these options, then you will get to have a kind of property over here, and that is format option, right? So this format option you can see over here. And now you can align all of these rectangles or all of these shapes as you want. So let me go forward with this align option and let me keep it in a kind of, I can simply distribute it in a kind of horizontal format. Let me click over here and now let me align it by keeping it on align top, right? So maybe this particular option was not being chosen. That's why it is not coming across over here, right? You have to choose it such that all of these multiple options we can choose, right? So now once I've chosen it, let us go forward with the format. Let us align it horizontally, and then we can simply keep it in a kind of align top option, right? Okay, so now you can now once I've aligned it properly, you will get to see this option that, yeah, now all are being chosen, right? Let us go forward with the format option. Let me click on align. Let me distribute it horizontally, right? And let us keep it aligned top. Well, now you can see all of your multiple visuals are now being aligned together, right? A proper space you can see among these multiple rectangles. That's exactly how you can align it. And once you're done with that, then one more thing you can do over here, and that is if I'm just clicking, right? Then you can have this option, right? This properties option you can have, and now with respect, and then your shape option also you can have, right? So you can simply come up with this padding. You can simply select its background, right? And then the visual border if you want or not. So definitely we don't want any kind of visual border. That's why we want to be keeping it. And then I can choose some kind of properties over here as well, right? And let us choose it again. And now once you are choosing it, you will get to see now all of our rectangles are being selected, right? So now I can have this option that there is a fill option, right? In your shape style, you will get to see that in your shape itself, that is a format option. In your shape style, you will get to see that there is a fill option over here, right? So border, if you want to keep or not, that is completely up to you. But we don't want to keep any border for our visuals. So let us simply click it. So we'll turn it off. And then with respect to our fill, I want some kind of color that is like a dark gray kind of color, right? So we can choose it, this specific option, that is a black 20% lighter. Let us choose this option. And now all of your rectangles are being chosen in this specific way itself. So height we are keeping it as 100 pixel, width we are keeping it as 225 pixel itself, and then we have distributed it horizontally and we have aligned it top in top format, right? So these four rectangles we will be making the use of to convey the message or to convey the information to our stakeholders, right? So we are going to keep our KPI cards into these four rectangles itself, and that will be reflecting the important information which the executive is quite interested in. Now, once we're done with this, as I was telling you that you need to leave some space over here in the leftmost end. And the reason behind it is that, as we were mentioning in the first video itself, that we are going to come up with a kind of sidebar kind of option, right? This sidebar will gonna keep it so that we can put these multiple options that by clicking on this specific sidebar, you will be able to navigate to the second report or third report or fourth report so that it can be a bit more user friendly, right? And just because of that, let us again insert some new rectangle over here. Let me go forward with my insert option. And now you can have this option over here that is N shape option. Let us click on rectangle, right? Let us align it at the end. And for it, you can simply go forward with a width of around 45 pixels, right? Let us choose it like that. Okay. So it's completely up to you if you want to keep its property like that. So it's always being preferred to keep its width up to 45 pixel. Okay, so these changes you can make from your side. And one more thing, you can simply keep the color of all of these multiple visuals or these different rectangles as 20% black, right, lighter itself. This option you can always choose. We will be keeping a kind of similar kind of format, right? Similar kind of color background we will be keeping so that it will be looking as more user friendly or more intuitive kind of thing, right? So these are the changes you can make from your side. These four rectangles you can keep from your side and this sidebar, right? And then with respect to our next video, we will be coming up with more of the practical implementation. So these are like the prerequisites that you can cover from your side. And let us meet in the next video with discussing more about this practical implementation. And that would be all in our first orientation. And let us meet in the next video with more of these insights, right? So thank you. Alright guys, so in the previous videos, we were discussing about our first practical implementation or the prerequisites that we have to complete, right? So we have discussed about how we can come across these multiple background rectangles that we can make the use of if we want to show our KPI cards. And then one of the prerequisite you had to complete from your side, that is you can keep the width of the sidebar from your side as 45. So directly in this properties option itself, in shape only, you will get to see this option that is size and style. And from there itself, you can keep the width as 45. It is not like mandatory, but it's a kind of, a kind of good way to keep all of these things organized, right? That's why we are doing it. Now, once you're done with this thing, we can do one thing over here that is, you can see that all of these four rectangles are representing the similar kind of information only, right? Like all of these rectangles will be used to represent our KPI cards itself, right? That is something you can see. So what exactly we can do from our side is that we can simply group all of these four KPI cards or all of these four rectangles together, right? This is something we can do from our side. So what exactly I can do is that for grouping all of these four rectangles together, you can see this option over here, right, at the rightmost corner, that is a customize option. So we are having other options over here as well, that is a data option. Once you're clicking on data, you will get to see that data set. Oh, all right. And then you will get to see this build option as well, then these format option as well. And then there is a plus option. So this plus option will be helping you out to come across other tools that you can make the use of. So Copilot will be helping you out to come across AI. So if you want to make the use of AI to come up with some important insights from this dashboard itself, you can make the use of it. At this point, we won't be exploring Copilot, but we will be exploring in this video that is the selection option, right? So the selection option is going to be quite important. So that's why let us click it. And now let us go forward with this selection option itself, right? And now on clicking over here, you'll get to see that we are having these multiple selection options. And this is simply representing all of the different visuals that we're having over here. So all of these multiple tools, that is these rectangles, this logo, and this sidebar that you can see over here, this left sidebar. So these shapes and these images are representing these tools itself, or these buttons, or these shapes itself, right? So if you want to keep all of these things organized, you can simply rename it, and you can simply group all of these four rectangles together, right? Just because we know that all of these four rectangles are conveying a similar kind of information. So if you want to see that what shape is representing what information, you can click over here. You'll get to see that this shape is representing our left sidebar or left nav bar. So that's why you can simply right click, or you can simply double click over here, and you can name it as left nav bar, right? And now your image is representing the Amazon logo. This is something you can keep, and these four shapes are representing these four KPI cards which you can come across. So what exactly we can do is that I can simply click Shift plus Enter, and I can choose these multiple shapes altogether. And now I can simply group it. If I'm just right clicking over here, you'll get to see this group option. So now all of these four rectangles are being grouped together, right? And you can simply name this group as well. You can name it as our KPI cards, right? All right, so this is how exactly you can select all of these multiple tools that you're having. We can just simply organize it if you want. Right now it is being aligned together, right, in the proper format. So these alignment you can make from your side, this grouping you can do from your side, and that was something we were discussing in the video. And one more thing you can do from your side, and that is in the first video itself, we were discussing that we are going to come up with four reports as per the requirement, or as per the information we want to convey to the stakeholder, right? So the first page will be representing the information as the executive dashboard. Just because the first page is something in which the executive is quite interested in. That's why over here itself, you can simply rename it again by double clicking, and let us rename it as exec dash. So this simply means that we are creating an executive dashboard over here, right? So this is going to be our first report. And then if I'm clicking on this plus option, you will get to see the second report that you can make the use of, right? So in this specific dashboard, we will be coming up with the geospatial analysis. So that's why I will be representing a map over here to show the regional insights, right? In a similar way, in our third page, we are going to represent the information with respect to our product category. So let us name it as product. And then finally, I can come up with my fourth page, which is conveying the information with respect to our customer details, right? So these four pages you can create from your side as well. We will be simultaneously working on these multiple reports, but our major focus is going to be on the first dashboard itself, just because we are creating this dashboard for the executive only, and executives are quite interested in these important visuals itself, right? So that would be all in this video, and let us meet in the next video with some more important insights, and thank you. All right, guys, so let us get started with our first visual that we were discussing about, wherein the important details that we had to reflect, that we will be reflecting via making the use of the card visual, right? So in the previous videos itself, we were discussing about these KPI cards, right? That we can simply make the use of these KPI cards so that the important information or those numbers in which the executive is quite interested in, so we can simply represent those numbers via making the use of these KPI cards itself. And even if you are getting started with building these dashboards, then whenever you are working with any of the financial data, the first thing that you have to reflect is going to be the financial information itself. Just because let it be an executive or a manager, each and every single end user is quite interested in looking upon your financial information itself, or those numbers, right? So that's why the first visual that we are going to make the use of is going to be our KPI card. So now let us have a look upon this visual gallery, right? So into our insert ribbon itself, we are having this visual gallery. And now into my visual gallery itself, I'm having these multiple kind of visuals, right? And when you scroll down, you'll get to see these multiple cards. We are having this KPI card, cost card. So these multiple cards we are having, right? So one of this card we are going to make the use of to show these important numbers to our executive. So this specific card option that you can see over here is just an enhancement which just came, or an upgradation which came over these years, right? But with respect to our own use case, we are going to make the use of this specific card itself, which will be reflecting the important information, right? So let me click over here, and this card option you will be mostly making the use of when you are building your own dashboard with respect to other data set as well, whenever you are interested in showing your financial information, right? So now from this fields option, let me add my data. So just because the first information in which the executive is quite interested in is, is that what revenue the company has generated over these years. So for example, if the company is working from last 10 years, so over this time period of 10 years, what is the revenue the company has generated, right? Just because in that information, the companies are quite interested in, or the executive is quite interested in. So that's why, first of all, you can search your measure that is giving us the insight about the revenue. Directly, you can make the use of the search option over here itself. And now we are having this total revenue, right? So we have calculated it, right? We have calculated it by making the use of sum function, and then the sum function we were applying onto the onto the pro product of the complete product price and the product quantity, right? Or the order quantity, right? So that's how exactly we were calculating this total revenue. So that will be giving us the insight about the total revenue which the company has generated over these years. Now, one more thing you can do over here is that you can see this option over here, right? So if I'm just clicking over here, and if I'm clicking on this more options, then you will get to see the format. So if you want to provide any sort of formatting to your card, so that is something you can easily do. And why exactly we need to provide it a proper formatting? Just because the background we are going to make the use of is going to be this rectangle, right? So that's why we need to come up with a proper formatting for these cards so that we can simply put it over our rectangle itself. So first of all, let us get started with yeah, one thing you have to do over here, and that is as soon as you're going to pass on that value as a field, you can directly double click over here and you can change it to revenue. There is no point to show total revenue over here, so let me just keep it as revenue itself, right? And then let us go forward with these formatting options. And there is a point to keep title over here just because we have already kept the revenue. And now, with respect to size and style, let me provide a kind of proper height to it, just because we need to fit this card visual onto my rectangle. So let me keep my height as 100. That seems fine, and the width we can keep up to 200, right? The width seem also fine just because we have to put it over here, so maybe it can fit easily, right? Now, once we are done with this, we can move forward with the second thing. Now the background you shouldn't keep, right? The background is coming up over here as white. And just because the background we are keeping is dark grayish kind of background, so that's why there is no point to keep the background over here, right? So let me just keep my background off, and let us move forward with the next option, and that is this call out value option. So call out value will be helping you out to make the changes in what value you are representing over here, right? So let me go forward with this call out value, and let me make the changes on, or I can keep the change in the format in which this value is being represented onto this card, right? So let us go forward with a particular font itself, and there is a specific font, and that is Sego UI. So it seems a bit fine, right? So that's why we can keep it. And then the font size, we can keep it up to 45. That seems like fine, right? And let me keep it as bold. And the color you can keep from your side is going to be, so you can see this color over here, right? But mostly with respect to our use case, we are going to make the use of a color that is coming out to be as naval blue, right? So you can see this multiple colors over here, right? So kind of blue theme we are going to make the use of, that is naval blue. So if you want to simply go forward with this naval blue color, then you can click on this more colors option, and then you will be able to enter the hex code which is belonging to that specific color. And there is a great thing about this hex code, and that is if you want to choose a specific color, then you can simply search out the hex code which is belonging to that color into the browser itself. So by making the use of internet itself, you will be able to come up with the hex code for the color you are trying to choose, and then you will be able to choose it. Like, let me show it to you over here itself. If I'm interested in going forward with my naval blue color, then I can simply go forward with writing the hex code as 20 E2 D7. And now your naval blue color has been chosen. All right. Now, once we are done with this, let me move forward with keeping some other changes. So I think these changes seems fine, right? All right. So I won't make the changes into this. And the display units, I can keep it in millions. Million seems fine. Right. Yeah, but one decimal I would like to keep over here so that we will get to see a proper value. Okay, 24.9 seems more precise just because it is not exactly representing the accurate value, but a more precise value. It's because the companies will definitely be interested in looking forward to these numbers set, whether if it is 24.8, 24.9, or whether if it is proper $25 million, right? So we can keep the decimal places up to 1 and let us see if we can make any other changes or not. So the header icons, if you want to make any changes, you can make it. That is completely up to you. And all right, these changes seems fine, right? Into the title option, there is no point to keep the title. Visual border, if you want to keep, there is no point to keep the visual border over here as well, right? And all of these changes seems fine, right? So you always have to come up with a proper changes. Now, the major reason you always have to come up with a proper change is because the change that you will be making into your first card. So in the first card itself, you should always make sure about this thing that you are keeping the proper changes so that whatever changes you are going to make into your first card itself, you can reflect those changes into the other cards as well, right? So you don't have to make these changes again and again, and you don't have to make this format change again and again, right? So that's why we can make some other changes over here into the first card itself, and that is into my category label that is at the end. I can change the color of this revenue option that you can see over here, right? Now, why exactly I'm changing that change into my revenue color is because I want to display it again onto this background color that is a grayish kind of black. So that's why I would like to keep it as white. And that seems quite fine, right? I can increase its size as well if I want to. And now if I'm just dragging it and dropping it over here, then you will get to see a proper value which is being shown. Let me just look at how exactly it is looking like. Okay, this seems fine, right? And now you can see a kind of proper value which is being shown over here, right? 24.9 millions is coming out with the total revenue which the company has generated. All right, just because, yeah, one more thing you can do over here if you want to, that you can simply reduce its width if you want to, but let me just go forward with keeping my font size is 42. And now it seems quite fine, right? Okay, so these changes you always have to alter from your side so that you can come up with a proper formatting so that you can look forward to the details in a more precise way, right? Just because you ultimately need to display these details in front of an executive, right? So your dashboard must look like appropriate, or the card should be placed in a proper format into your rectangle itself. And what exactly I was saying was that all of the changes you should always make in your first card itself, and then you can reflect these changes into the other card visual as well, right? This is something you can do from your side. So now what you can do is that you can click over here. Let me click Control C and then Control V. That's because I need to show my return percentage as well, profit as well, and then the revenue I've already shown, and I've also required to show the total orders which the company is generating. Okay. And one more change I would like to keep over here, and that is for the total orders, right? So let me go forward with this and let me make the changes. So over here, I don't want to display the revenue, but I want to display the orders, right? So let me click over here. And we would like to look into this all orders option, right? Or the total orders. Okay, we are getting some value for total orders, and let us change the field value as orders itself, right? And now if I'm dragging it and dropping it over here, you will get to see that now you don't have to make changes into the formatting, right? And all of the changes that you have already made with respect to your revenue, that you can simply go forward with. Now again, over here itself, I need to show my profit values, and that's why I will be adding the field over here as profit value that I've generated, right? So total profit is one of the value which I've generated in the previous section itself, and that is something I need to show over here. And now the field name, I want to keep it as profit itself. And that also seems fine. Let me keep my orders over here. And once I'm done with this as well, let me go forward with my final representation, wherein I will be representing the return percentage now. Right. So again, let me go forward with this option. Instead of representing the revenue over here, we can represent the return percentage as well. So percentage of total returns is something we have calculated in the previous videos itself. So let me go forward with representing these details as well. And let me keep the name of it as returns percentage or return percentage, right? Okay, return percentage is coming out to be as 100, right? So we don't have to make these changes. We don't really need to keep it as 100, right? So one thing you have to make, yeah, one thing you have to change over here, and that is show value as. Or you might remember that we had one of the measure which was representing the return rate, right? So instead of going forward with this percentage of total returns, we should make the use of the measure as the return rate, right? As that will be representing a proper percentage value, that how exactly the return was initiated with respect to the total sales we had, right? So let me go forward with that measurement itself. Let me represent the return rate, and that will be giving us a proper value, right? But let me actually name it as return percentage itself, and let us see what exactly we are getting. All right, and let me drag it and drop it over here. And now you can see a proper value, right? So these are the numbers which the executive is always quite interested in. That is what is the profit that the company is generating, what are the total number of orders which the company had since these 4 years of time period, and what is the revenue the company has generated throughout these years, and what is the return percentage. And you should always represent one decimal place, just because the companies are always interested in looking forward to these numbers in a more precise way, or in a proper answer they need, right? They're not exactly interested in looking forward to these values like 25 or 26. They always want a proper number, right? So now these important numbers is something the executive will be first of all looking upon, that with respect to our Amazon company, the revenue which the company has generated over these 4 years time period is coming out to be as $24.9 million, right? The total orders the company had was around 25.2K orders, right? What is the profit the company has generated, and what is the return percentage? So by looking upon these specific information only, the company will get to know, or the executive will get to know, that whether if this company is getting into profit, or whether if the company is getting into loss. So if you're going forward with this F pattern as well, or the Z pattern as well, always these details are going to be something which the company will always be looking upon, or the executive will always be looking upon. So that's why you have to reflect these numbers in the first fragment of your dashboard itself. So these changes we have made from our side. Let us go forward with keeping some more changes. So in the selection option itself, yeah, one thing I would like to keep change over here, and that is I can just simply select all of these options that I've just created, right? I want to group it all together. Just like the previous video, we can just simply align it in a proper way, right? So let me go forward with my format option, and let me first of all distribute it horizontally, and let me align it to the top. Okay, this distribution doesn't seem to be quite fine. Let us click on Control Z to undo the changes. Let us just align it on top only. Okay, now this seems fine, right? So it seems fine. Or we can just keep it over here. Let us again. So you have always have to change this formatting from your side until and unless you won't be able to see a proper alignment, right? Now you can see some kind of values which are being properly represented, right? The revenue which is being shown. Or one thing you can also do over here, and that is this line, this red line that you can see over here, that will also be helping you out with a proper alignment, right? You can see that a center line you will get to see over here. And again, similar to that of, again, we can go forward with profit as well to get to see a proper value. And then with respect to return percentage as well. And now this seems to be a bit aligned, right? Now, once you're done with this, let me group it together so that again we can, whatever, so we can simply keep all of these categories into this KPI category itself, right? So this card option I'm first of all having over here, right? This card is getting selected and all of these multiple cards are getting selected over here itself. So let me press Shift plus click and let me choose all of these options. And once I've chosen it, let me right click over here. Let me group it together. And I'm going to group this name as, I'm going to name this group as group values. Group values you can call it as, or you can call it as KPI values, right? So first of all, we were creating these KPI cards and now we are creating these KPI values. And one more thing I can do over here is that I can choose these two different groups together as well, right? So that the KPI cards or the rectangles that we were creating, that also we can keep it in the similar group itself, and the values we can keep it in the similar group itself. So all of the KPIs we can align it together. So let me click Shift plus Enter for this specific group as well. Let me right click. Let me click on group, and I can name this group as KPIs. So now in your KPIs itself, you will get to see these subgroups. That is the KPI values, KPI cards, and that is what we're quite interested in. So we have grouped it properly. We are able to show our first important details via making the use of these KPI cards in which the companies or the executive is quite interested in. And now you are done with your first visual, right? This is going to be the first visual which you will be making the use of for most of the scenarios, right? So let us meet in the next video with an assignment with respect to these cards, and that would be all in this video with respect to the cards tutorial. So thank you. All right, guys, so let us get started with our first assignment from the data visualization section. So this first assignment is regarding the cards, right? So the first key objective is asking us to insert a card in the customer detail report page to show the total customers. And we have to rename the field as unique customers, right? Something like this we have seen in the previous video itself, right? So this key objective is the first key objective you have to solve from your side, and then the second key objective is to add a background shape and match the formatting of the cards in the executive dashboard tab, right? So again, this is something we have seen already, and in the third key objective is to copy and paste to create a second card showing average revenue per customer and rename the field as revenue per customer. Right. So again, these information we have already shown you in the previous video itself. It won't be a bit too much difficult. And one more thing you can do over here, like what exactly we can do in the next video when we will be looking into the solution of these videos. And that is what I will be doing from my side is that I can simply copy the content which I have already placed into my executive dashboard, and I can simply paste it onto the customer dashboard itself, right? So that I don't have to make these changes again and again, right? And what exactly I want to do is that I want to keep the formatting in each and every single dashboard to be the same, right? So that's why I can just simply copy the content from the first dashboard and then I can simply copy it in the final dashboard itself. That is also something I can do. So you can also try it out from your side, and let us meet in the next video with the solution of this first assignment, right? So that would be all, and thank you. All right, guys, so let us get started with the solution of these key objectives in this video. So the first key objective they have given us is to insert a card in the customer detail report page to show the total customers, and we have to rename the field as unique customers, right? So let us jump into our Power BI, and let me jump into my customer details report. And now over here, I want to create the similar kind of cards that we were displaying in the first video itself, right? Or in the previous dashboard itself, right? So what exactly I can do is that if I'm just clicking over here, and if I'm clicking on Control C, right? And then if I'm navigating to my customer report page, and if I'm clicking on Control V, then you will get to see a similar kind of formatting, right? A similar kind of formatting which you were able to see in your first dashboard. That is something you can keep in your second dashboard as well. And that is one of the great thing about Power BI, right? You don't have to make the changes into the formatting again and again. Once you have made the changes into a, and once you have created a proper format for your first visual itself, you can simply copy it and paste it out, right, into the other dashboard as well. So let me just select this option, and after selecting this option, we will get to see a selection page itself. And then with respect to the selection dashboard, now the selection tab will be representing the information with respect to the kind of dashboard you are working upon, right? Just because at this point we are working with our fourth dashboard, so that's why whatever shapes that are present in this fourth dashboard itself, only that will be shown. So into my KPIs, I'm having these KPI values, I'm having these KPI cards. But as per the requirement and as per the assignment which has been provided to us, as per that, we simply have to come up with only two of these card visuals, right? We are not exactly interested into these four card visuals. So that's why one thing I can do over here is I can ungroup it. So let me ungroup my KPI cards and let me ungroup my KPI values. So now we are having these cards and we are having these proper shapes, right? So now I can simply select and I can simply ungroup my KPIs as well. And now we are having all of these multiple visuals which are completely different from each other, right? So now at this point, I can simply delete this specific visual. If I want to simply click on it, simply click on delete, you will get to delete these visuals itself. In a similar way, you can click over here, delete, right? Just because with respect to our own use case, we are just interested in two of the visuals itself. Now, once we are done with this, let us move forward with our first key objective that we have to represent the details, that is total customers, and we have to rename it as unique customers, right? Let me click over here. Let me add the values as the total customers instead of revenue. Add data, total customers. Here we are with our total customers, and we have to rename it as unique customers, right? So once you have made these changes, let us move forward with the So this is the solution of your first assignment or your first key objective itself, right? And you can see how easy it is. So all of the changes you always have to make in your first visual itself, and you can see that how easily you can create these visuals in your other dashboard as well. And easily we have solved our first key objective itself, and let us move forward with the second key objective, that is we have to add a background shape and match the formatting of the cards in the executive dashboard tab. But we have already seen this thing that we have already copied and pasted it over here itself, so that now we don't have to copy any shape, right? So the second assignment or the second key objective also we are completely done with this, and let us move forward with the third key objective, and that is asking us to copy and paste to create a second card that is showing the average revenue per customer, and we have to rename the field as revenue per customer, right? So now let me jump into Power BI again, and let us create this second card we have already created, and we just have to change the visual over there. We have to simply name it as average revenue per customer, right? So what exactly we're representing over here is the multiple measurement that we had created in the previous videos, right? So only that information we are representing into these cards. So now let us go forward with our Power BI dashboard, let me show you the average revenue per customer, right? So now we have to name it as average. We have to change the value as average revenue per customer. So let me simply cross it and let me add the field over here as average revenue per customer, right? And we have to name it as revenue per customer, right? So you can simply double click over here. You can keep it as revenue per customer itself as per the requirement. And now we are done with this thing, right? We are able to represent the revenue per customer value over here itself. So if you want, then you can simply go forward with reducing the size of your font size as well. We can make these changes, right? I think it will be a kind of great thing if we are making the changes so that it is ultimately fitting. So every time when you're coming up with a measurement, you have to make the changes into this font size so that it will be perfectly fitting with respect to your background shape. So there is no such thing as keeping the font size to be the same for each and every single visual itself. As you, in some of the situation, you can keep some changes into the font size as well. So into the call out label as only, I will be making the changes with respect to the font size. Let me keep it as 13. 13 seems a quite bit fine, right? Okay, so that would be all that we will be making the changes into. And now one thing I can do over here, I can simply keep it over here, this value, or let me just group it, right? I can simply group it together first of all, so that it will be aligned together. Let us click it. Let me go forward with my formatting option and let us see how exactly we can align it together. Let me distribute it vertically at this point, right? And you have to click on align top. Let us see how exactly changes are happening. Okay, these changes are happening, but not in a kind of proper way. So first of all, one thing I can do over here is that, and that is I can simply first of all group it together, right? So let us check it out. Let me simply go forward with grouping it, wherein I will be keeping my shapes into a specific group itself. So I won't be choosing these cards, but I will be choosing these shape itself, right? So these shapes I will be grouping into a similar group itself. And now let me group it as just like my previous example, just like the previous dashboard that we were creating, we have to name these groups as the KPI. Let us name it as KPI cards, right? And the cards that we are representing is going to be the card values. Let me click over here. Let me shift plus click onto the second card as well. Then we can group it together as KPI values, right? So we have to rename it and we have to keep it as KPI values itself. And now we can simply group all both of these groups together into a similar group itself. And now let me go forward with clicking on group. And then that's exactly how we are representing our KPIs, right? So now we're done with this, right? We have grouped our two columns. We have grouped our two KPIs together. Now, if we want to align it, we can align it as well. That is completely up to us. But that would be all regarding the solution of our first two key objectives. And let us meet in the next video with some more important informative content, right? So that would be all. And thank you.